Hello and welcome to the Real Deal Trio podcast, where we dive deep into the world of real estate, business, and personal growth. I'm your host, Yahya Chatani, joined by my esteemed co-hosts, Mohit Badlani and Phil Mariani. Together, we bring you a wealth of knowledge and expertise to help you navigate through the complexities of the real estate market, unlock business success, and cultivate a life of balance and fulfillment. So get ready for insightful conversations, actionable advice, and also a whole bunch of inspiration. So let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight?
What's up, boys?
Tonight, I'm saying tonight because we are recording tonight at night.
I know.
It's like 8:30 in the evening.
That's when we always record, bro.
So, how's everyone doing?
Doing good. Just
Good,
hustling
man.
today, hustling.
Yeah, I just had a nice, delicious charcuterie board with a lot of different cheeses, so I'm feeling really good right now.
He's nice and full. He can go and take a nap now.
Oh,
Well,
no,
not
brother.
nap,
I am far from full. That was an appetizer, my man. That was just an appetizer.
I did my food prep
you
today.
had to break your fast, right?
Oh, no, dude. Phil, you gave me an idea, bro. So
What's that?
the last time we talked, Phil was talking about his meal prep and how he does chicken, rice, and broccoli. I think that was what you talked about, right?
I actually made it today. I made a bunch of food prep today.
So funny thing, the next day I get an email because I have the Restaurant Depot card as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an email from them, a whole chicken at the price of $179 per pound. I'm like, that is freaking cheap.
That's good.
So I'm like, you know
That's
what?
really
I'm
good.
about to turn into Phil. I'm about to get like a whole box of like
Do it.
40
Do
pounds of chicken, roast that stuff, and just make boxes of chicken, rice, and broccoli. That's all I'm eating.
That's it, man. That's it.
That's it. That's all you need. I guess start with our first topic of today. It would be the whole NAR situation with the National Association of Realtors and all the news that's been coming out in the past week and a half. I know Yaya did a whole 2-part video or a huge video on it on YouTube, and I guess we'll be discussing that today because it's the big
That's
the
been
big
the hot
elephant in the
topic right
room,
there.
right? It's a hot topic. It's the elephant in the room. What is going to happen to us realtors and real estate agents, and what's going to happen to the buyers, and what's going to happen with sellers? And so we're going to give you what we see on our end. There's nothing finalized yet because at the end of the day, the judge still has to sign off on it, and the judge has not as of right now. Did you guys hear anything? I haven't heard anything as of today, which is Wednesday. March 20th at 8:30 in the evening. We have not heard that the judge has signed off on it. So
No,
this
nothing yet.
Yeah, they're saying that the changes are going to take effect somewhere in July, mid-July is what they're saying.
Right.
And the thing is, you know, it's like you said, it's a mammoth of a topic. And
right.
as we all know, the media is always painting a negative picture because let's just talk about the truth here. The media gets paid to get clicks. And when they put out headlines, they're not always 100% accurate. So they want to make money with fear. And that's how they do it all the time. Doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom. The truth is,
Right.
and you guys have done the research, right? Like when this first came out, it was called the Setzer lawsuit. Then it became the Barnett lawsuit. And so the weird thing, guys, is I don't understand one thing. This all originated from the good old Midwest. It's like the only place in the U.S. where this happened, right? It's like Missouri and Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what is...
Well, you're from Missouri, aren't you?
No, I'm not from Missouri, bro. I just went there. And now I'm feeling not so happy
Just went
about
there.
it.
It's just, your in-laws are from there.
But it surprises me because, you know, the thing is, look, real estate is a business where a lot of it is incentive based, right? You help people with the highest bid and this and that. But how come these two states are at the cornerstone of this case? And if you read the reports, guys, it's at 260,000 homeowners came together for this lawsuit. So obviously something fishy happened in that state between how business was operated, which of course we don't really know the full depth of it. But the bottom line,
all it takes is one bad apple,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And correct me if you guys think I'm wrong here, but I think in any industry, in any business, and anywhere, there's the 80% Pareto's law where 20% of the people produce and 80% of the people don't. And when you don't produce and you don't do well, then sometimes you delve into the shady part of business. And, you know, and NAR is a lobbying company, right? That's what they do.
Yeah,
right?
It's a lobby company. It actually is not technically a lobby company. It's it lobbies for us,
Okay.
but they're just a big, membership company, I guess.
Membership company.
I guess a voice for the realtors,
What would they categorize? How would you categorize what NAR actually is?
An organization?
Same thing as, it's an organization that supports realtors and real estate
and I guess a voice in the as well,
That's right. They're our voice. That's where we pay our fees to.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's we're unionized in that way.
And it's what people
not
know, right?
technically a
We
union.
pay our fees to NAR. NAR doesn't, pay or do anything with commissions. There's, solely.
No, they have nothing
fees.
to do with any of that.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
and that, I think that's what the big misconception was, is this whole 5%, 6%, commission. All I think it's and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's basically taking that 5% or 6% commission and decoupling it.
Right.
So
just removing it from the MLS.
You use the word, man. The decoupling, I think, is the word that people need to know. Firstly, what the collaborative or the cooperative compensation structure is. So for anybody that doesn't know how this works, and you guys can correct me because you guys are agents, right? But this is my layman understanding for simplicity. If the cooperative compensation structure simply means if you list a property, the seller agrees to pay you 5, 6, 7%, whatever you guys agree to. There's no standard number to that. Then you take that number. And then if Phil lists this property and Mo brings a buyer, then he splits that commission with Mo as a technical, let's say, finder's fee. But the seller pays for that, right? Now, Mo gets his cut, Phil gets his cut, transaction is done, we're good to go. But now when we decouple it, of course, in terms of logic, now Phil is not going to go and say, hey, I'm still going to charge you 7% or 6% because he was splitting it. So let's say he splits it through the middle and it's 6% for easy numbers. So Phil kept 3, Mo kept 3. But now, if you're decoupling it, then Phil is not saying I'm going to charge you 6. Now it's going to be a different figure, obviously. But for people that don't know what a listing agent does or how they market, and correct me again, is they market the property into the MLS for which they pay a fee. So they, take an expense out of that. They do footage, pictures, signs, yard signs. They hire people to do calls, marketing campaigns, flyers. There's a lot of different things they do. So they expense that up front for which they charge the commission. And then once they make that commission, that is expensed out, and then they keep the balance, and then they pay a broker a certain fee, whatever. So that entire 5, 6, 7% or 3% doesn't really just go to the agent. It's split between different parties. Right? Like a transaction coordinator or whatnot. So now when you decouple it, and from what I understand, you are not allowed to put a buyer's commission into the MLS anymore. It's prohibited. And you can still negotiate that commission, though. It doesn't say the buyer's agents are not going to get commission, right? They're still going to get paid. But it's now up to the buyer to decide how much, how they want to pay. And you can still negotiate with the seller. They're not saying that the seller cannot pay it in any capacity. They're just saying it, do not premeditate and determine how much you're getting paid. Because I think the issue was that they were saying that if one listing is offering 3% and the other is offering 2%, an agent would not work in good faith and market the property with a higher commission. That was the issue too, right? That they said.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Lawrence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business.
They were steering. I think that may have been a little bit of the issue too, but I don't think it was the main driving issue. I think it was that it was the fact that they were saying, "Hey, there's a strict 5% or there's strict 6% rule that these realtors are using, and paying commission." So I think the 5% or the 6% came because that's what the market asked.
And that's so. Tell me this, guys. I want you guys to tell me because you guys are the experts in this. But there is no market there's no going fee for agents, correct? It's whatever exactly.
There's no set fee.
Exactly.
There's no set fee. Exactly.
You agree to an agreement between a broker and a buyer or a seller, and you guys determine what you want to pay. Now, if everybody's, like, oh, okay, my neighbor paid 6%, so I'll pay 6%. That's not something that's set in stone. Plus, you are not obligated to use an agent if you don't want to. You use them because they know what they're doing. But if you are obviously somebody who's sold multiple homes or bought multiple homes and you know what to do, then you can do it yourself. It's not nobody. Right. I think the misconception was that, oh, you are forced to use an agent.
You can rewire your own home. You can do plumb your own, DIY your own plumbing in your own home. You can do all that stuff.
Yeah, it's DIY, there's no obligation.
Like, hey, do I want to go through all that hassle to put new electrical wiring in my house or new plumbing in my house? No, I'm gonna call a professional to do it, and that's when we come in, right? Yeah. As real estate agents, that's where we come in and help these customers out.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, guys. Obviously, this is one area that's near and dear to my heart because I am pretty much 100% a listing agent. I primarily just work with sellers. My wife and daughter, as a family-run team, they work with buyers. So it's very important, that I think there just hasn't been enough educating, the listing agents haven't been properly educating sellers over the years on how the actual, commission structure works. Most people say, hey, this is my fee, it's 6%. And I think, sellers, just assume that it's a set fee, but it's really not. Everything is negotiable. But if, obviously, if you're at a list presentation and you're, showing this is my, my proposition, what I'm going to do for you, and they agree to it, and here's what you can expect, to net, the buyer, the seller agrees, the agent agrees, and then they sign. But what's important to understand is that really, you made this a good point. Yeah, really, the seller is really not paying the buyer commission. So technically speaking, when I'm on a listing presentation, the seller, and the agent will negotiate. So I will negotiate one, percentage, okay, with the seller. Okay, and let's say whatever it's 5 or 6%. Now I negotiate. So that's what the seller is agreeing. So let's say 6%. We negotiate, right? That's what the seller is agreeing to pay the listing agent or the selling, the listing agent's brokerage. Okay, and then out of that, that's when our brokerage, the listing agent brokerage, then offers a cooperative, commission to another participating brokerage that brings a buyer. So really, it comes out of the listing side, and then because even on our listing agreement, there's a spot on the listing agreement where there's one number that's negotiated, and then out of that it says, okay, out of that number, what is the listing brokerage going to offer, compensate a buyer brokerage for bringing us a qualified buyer that's ready, willing, and able to purchase a home. So there's a lot of misconception. A lot of people don't understand that, and not really probably breaking that down and explaining how that works. And so even on our listing now, as of the moment, a seller has the option on the MLS to offer a zero compensation as of the moment, right? So we know what's guaranteed, what's actually set in stone at the moment. A seller has an option to offer a zero compensation. Okay. Now, coming, like you said, mid-July, what's supposed to happen is that line is supposed to go away, so to speak. That ability to advertise a buyer, a selling agent commission on the MLS is going to go away, to where the buyer will have to sit down with a buyer's agent. They'll have to negotiate a whatever that buyer's agent fee is to work with them and their value proposition is, and then sign a buyer brokerage agreement. Okay, now this is where it's really tricky. There's so many questions unknown from here. Is how I think a lot of the first time home buyers and VA buyers are going to be impacted by this tremendously. Because first of all, you probably know as a loan officer, VA doesn't allow the buyer to pay their commission or not even a transaction fee at the moment. So that's one thing that has to be addressed. And then another issue is a lot of first-time home buyers they may be getting down payment assistance. They may already need closing cost incentive, just to get into a house, as home values are up and hard enough as it is, not having enough affordable housing, and that's going to make it difficult. So I think a lot of the first-time home buyers are going to suffer. They say, hey Phil, or Mo, I want to. I see your value, and I need to use an agent. I don't know what I'm doing, because there are so many things that can go wrong with a real estate transaction. And remember, at the end of the day, if you're a listing agent, you're looking out for the best interest of the seller. And if you're a buyer and you don't have representation, there's no protection for you. There's nobody to protect you through so many facets. So we can have a whole nother conversation on, what are the benefits, of having a buyer's agent and things like that. But I believe a lot of people are going to suffer from that.
No, I agree, man. And honestly, that's kind of where, I think this is a great discussion here. So what you said were really good points. And I want to kind of lean into that a little because like Mo said, I did a video on exactly that because I wanted the audience to have an objective view, right? So this discussion, guys, we're doing this as an objective view, completely open, and we're going to have some anti. So now I'm going to go against Phil and I'm going to come up with a different perspective. So I'm going to say, okay, Phil, look, I get it. And you're right. Like if I was a first-time buyer, I do need the guidance. But let's say I'm not a first-time buyer and it's a regular transaction and I'm committed to buy a house. My thoughts now are, so if a client is not paying, let's say 6%, let's assume they're giving you 3% because they're like, oh, well, you were going to give 3% to them and keep 3. So why don't I just give you 3 and you agree and whatever. If that happens to be the case, our home price is going to come down a little. Are sellers willing to negotiate the price a little? Is that going to make it a little bit better for buyers? If that's the case, are buyers going to be able to get more concessions? Like, let's say I threw an example in my video that if you're going to do a conventional loan of $500,000 and you're going to put less than 10%, 5%, 7%, what 10%, you can get up to 3%, concessions of the sales price, which happens to be $15,000. Now, average closing costs are between $8,000 to $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 roughly. So if you put that money and you get this concession here and you use Mo as a buyer's agent, we don't know the truth about the underwriting guidelines, but I don't know if they're going to accommodate this, but could we possibly include that in the seller concession and say, hey, Mr. Seller, from the $15,000 you're giving me, I'm going to use $5,000 to pay Mo, my agent. I'm going to use the remaining 10 for myself, right?
Yes.
Now
we can. As long as it's set up as a concession.
Exactly. Now, the one thing we are waiting to see as lenders on our side is, can we approve that in our underwriting guidelines?
Yes.
And that's something I'm waiting to see, because if that comes up and we can do it, then it's going to solve a big problem. Plus, if we can negotiate the price, that would help us a little, obviously, right? The sellers are going to be like, hey, yeah, I'm not paying $30,000. I'm paying 15. So, okay, I can give you 15 and I cut that in half. And from that 15, you pay your agent, take care of it. But the question now comes up.
You do what you want to do with that money.
You do what you want to do. But now the problem is, when you do down payment assistance for a first-time buyer, like I said, Phil, that's where it gets tricky. Because if I'm a first-time buyer, I don't know jam. And I think, and I'm not trying to take a side here, I just want to put this objectively, because if you do this yourself, if I do a transaction myself, I need a title company and I need an attorney, because I need somebody to review my contract. Now, agents are not attorneys, but they've done enough contracts that they understand how to in and out, negotiate, add addendums, and basically look out for their represented, buyer or seller. So I will need an attorney, and they charge by the hour. So I'm going to have to pay that. If I do a contract, an average fee I see between real estate attorneys is between $500 to $1,500, depending on the work you make them do. So you get that done. Now you have to do the home inspection. You have to understand how to read that report. You have to understand how to read the seller's disclosure, which a lot of times is very confusing. You have to talk to the HOA if you're going to be, buying in a community or a condo. And doing all this, plus negotiating, plus keeping track of your own transaction, coordinating with your lender and the HOA and the title company and the real estate attorney and the seller's agent. And then once the appraisal comes in, being able to read, understand, negotiate on top of that, you can learn to do this. It's not like the most difficult thing. But my thought is time versus value. If I'm paying Mo $5,000 to take care of this for me, which happens to be 1% of the 500,000, versus me taking on this responsibility, waking up in the morning, going to work, dealing with this. And if I can get this document or paperwork on top of providing my lender my conditions, and if I fail this transaction, then I am going to lose my escrow. The seller might sue me for failure to perform. Correct. And the seller now has to deal with the repercussions as well of having the property listed on the market and not being sold. And the first thing somebody was like, why didn't your property get sold? It was on the market. What happened? I'm going to pay you $10,000 less. So all these problems could occur. So can you do this? Of course you can. Absolutely. Anybody could buy or sell a home. But the question is what Mo said. I could change my car's alternator myself too, but do I want to do it? Do I want to take 5 hours out of my day and not have all the tools and get greased up and get dirty and pay a guy $200 and be like, bro, do it in 1 hour professionally? So it comes down to you as a client and what you think is best for you. But you're right. It's going to bring about a lot of things. And what you said about the VA loan as well. Yes.
Right.
VA loan is a great product and it does help them a lot. But because of this commission structure, if it reduces on the selling side, would the sellers be more compliant in sharing that directly with the buyers? That's something that I'm waiting to see and know on how that happens, because that's something that really, it's a pretty wild card, right? We don't know how that's going to play out. What do you think, Mo? What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with both of your thoughts. The other thing that I still find very difficult to wrap my head around is that even if we have to open a door for a client, we need a signature from them and a buyer's agreement from them. Otherwise, we can't even open a door for them. So that's going to come into play. The other thing that's going to come into play is on the buyer's agreement, what are you going to put in there? Say, hey, my fees or my charges are, let's say, $10,000. That's my fee. You buy a house, the client likes the house, you show them the house, everything looks great, you negotiate everything, and once you come down to negotiation, seller's only giving $5,000 in concession. He said, use it however you want. That means the buyer has to come up with the additional $5,000 to pay its realtor? Or can the realtor come back and say, hey, you know what? He's only paying $5,000. I'll just go ahead and take $5,000. Could that be a case as well? Could there be an addendum to it? Because I found out, I guess, from our meeting that we can go down in our commission, but we can't go up in our commission.
So you're like a lender
as
now.
a buyer agent.
so that's how it is for us. I mean, whenever and this is funny.
You guys are capped, right?
Yeah.
No,
it's not.
capped. You guys can't go past a certain threshold.
I mean, you can, but the part where once it's written, it cannot be changed. So, for example, if I send you a loan estimate and I've disclosed the loan and I've told you your closing costs or my fees or whatever are going to be X dollar amount, I cannot go back and change it. There's a 10% rule of variance. If it's within 10%, it's okay. It goes above that, I'm out of compliance. Now that loan cannot be done. I have to cancel that loan, redo a whole new loan, redisclose the whole file. But it's a good thing because it keeps unethical people at bay. This is why the 2008 debacle, when that happened, Dodd-Frank and the CFPB and all these guys came out and they, chopped all these things off. So now on this side, it's interesting. And I'm curious. I'm really curious because I feel it is going to hurt a lot of people, including agents, obviously, because there was a stat. I don't know if you guys saw that annual commission pool for real estate agents is $60 billion. That's supposed to drop by 30%. And it would probably be like $42 billion. That's just an estimate. So if that happens to be, guys, how many people do you think are going to leave the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's predicted for a certain percentage to leave by the next year.
Yeah, I think 50% agents are gone.
Or I know it's going to affect the part-time agents a lot, as well.
Yeah, part-time agents are for sure gone.
Mm-hmm.
But it also begs the question that, like you guys said, if you're really good at what you do, then
you can still battle it out no matter what you do. Yeah, exactly.
Let's say an example, like me and Mo have worked together. I'm waiting for Phil to work with me because he's Italian. He tests you a little more. He's like the mafia. He's like, kiss my ring. But so when me and Mo work, like for example, let's say we have a buyer, we do some things that I think people should know. For example, it's not just, hey, talk to a lender and get pre-approved and come back and I'll show you a home. It's not that. It's a consultation. Mo is spending time trying to understand, okay, Phil, what do you want in a house? What is important to you? Because he's going to be that barrier that's going to keep you logically invested and keep you emotionally invested, but have the balance to protect you so you don't fall into a trap and like, oh my God, man, I love this house. I want it. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't match your finances, doesn't match your pre-approval, doesn't matter what you said. Your wife's going to hate you. You're going to get kicked out. Like he's looking out for you, right? So he's protecting you. You come to a lender, my goal is to give you the numbers to make sure you're financially making an informed decision. You may love this house, but you told me you don't want to pay more than X amount of. Okay. So in 2008, when this happened, a lot of bad things were chopped off and that was great for the industry. But now coming into real estate, the thing that an agent does is far beyond just showing a home. And this is just to kind of give an example of how we work together as a team, me and Mo, right? So Mo brings me a buyer and says, hey, pre-qualify, pre-approve my buyer. My job is to understand his buyers, look at their income, their assets, their financial capability, and help them decide what their monthly budget for their household, expenses is versus the projected mortgage, look at how much money they have saved up and whether buying a house firstly, is a good decision or not. Secondly, if they do move forward, what's the limit? What's the cap they want to be at based on interest rate, taxes, property purchase price, and then we discuss strategies. When Mo works with the client, he keeps this information in his mind, and then he goes with the clients to help them understand, okay, if I'm going to overbid on a property, how soon can I break even? I run those numbers for him, give him that. Does renting versus buying make sense for me as a buyer? We do a whole flow chart. Look at the numbers. Does it make sense? Because guys, look, the truth is not everybody should buy a house, right? Not everybody should. So it doesn't mean if a buyer comes, I'm pushing them in the machine and saying buy. No,
True.
but that's the reality of it. The way the media paints the picture is like, oh man, Phil and Mo, you get clients, you're just taking 6%. Not necessarily. How many times have agents given up commissions, guys, to help home buyers so they can close their transactions?
All the time.
Why don't anybody talk about that?
All the time. But look, at the end of the day, we just have to take it. I guess we can be angry and mad and frustrated. I guess all us realtors and real estate agents will be mad and upset and angry for one day. The next day, move on. You know what I mean? Figure it out. Let's figure it out. If you're going to be in the game, continue being in the game. If not, if you want to move on to something else, go ahead and move on to something else.
I mean, for what we understand and gather, even though the seller has the ability not to offer, a compensation or that will go away, the seller, so at the end of the day, will have the ability to offer a seller concession. And I recommend, that a seller still do that. So traditionally before, the seller was paying one commission, which covered whether it's 5% or 6%, that was covering the listing agent and a buyer agent commission. And then you got a buyer and they submitted an offer and the buyer was asking for a dollar amount in seller concessions, or they were asking for a percentage of the purchase price and seller concessions. And that's traditionally how we overdone it. And the numbers always worked. So if it's just a matter of moving from one line to another, I think they just want that real estate commission to be negotiated outside of the MLS and not a set number is what it sounds like. I really think that's what it comes down to. But I think it's still going to be a benefit for the seller to offer a concession, because just think, if there's a certain percentage, let's say if there's 50% of the buyers that can't afford, they want to pay a buyer's agent for representation, but they maybe can't afford it. That's 50% less agents that are going to show your property for sale, right? So just think how it's going to really be a chain reaction. It's going to affect the buyers, but it's also going to affect, sellers. So what does that mean? If sellers are getting less showings on their homes and they're sitting on the market much longer, they'll see, sellers that are willing to pay a concession, their homes may go under contract quicker because they have, the ability to, help a buyer, compensate their agent, versus, agents that won't get compensated, and the homes will sit on the market longer. And what they'll do, I think sellers will wind up having to drop the price. I mean, I think they'll get desperate after a period of time too.
Yeah. The thing that we were fearing about that you were talking about earlier, Yaya, is steering. I think that's going to come into play again. It'll be another thing of ethics that they're going to have to revamp and refresh. Because there's going to be a lot of ethic changes as well.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. I think it's a huge thing. And like you guys said,
it's going to be a huge overhaul.
Yeah,
a lot of unanswered questions. But we're going to just, the biggest thing I'm going to tell our clients, listen, we don't have all the facts, everything, but we're going to do this together. And I tell them, this is what we know at the moment. And, this is what I recommend. I'm still going to, when I go my listing presentation, I'm still going to recommend them to offer some type of compensation or sell a concession to help, because at the end of the day, it's still going to benefit you. You're still going to have more people, being able to show your home, or agents to be able to, the work with buyers to be able to show their home. And
so what you're saying is it's the numbers are what makes sense, right? So really, if you're coming up and you're like, hey, listen, my home is, let's say you did a CMA on it a comparative market analysis, and you can sell it for 500,000. And if you were going to offer the 6%, let's say anyway, in the past, and that would have gotten the deal done. You guys look at absorption rates and, how much the difference between a list price versus the close prices and all that stuff, right? So if you looked at that and for a fact that that's how it works, math doesn't lie. So if you have to do things differently, sure, but in a concession, if you could do it, you can help somehow. That would work. But yes, I think with the way the market is, with the inflation, with the Fed today announcing that they're not going to cut rates so soon, that's also, a bit of a blow here because rates are pretty high. We're already trying to do temporary buy downs to help buyers get in the homes and save that extra $500-$600 in interest payment. And who's paying for that? The seller is. So sellers are already helping out. So I think it's exactly what you guys said. I think we're going to have to go through it and see. But it's important to remember it's still a free market. Right. It's not something where, like Phil and Mo said earlier, that, it's a 6% standard. There's no standard. Everything is negotiable. It's transparent. Exactly. But I think as professionals, it's going to come down to agents doing a better job of presenting their offers, making value propositions, and clarifying the communication. Because I think one more issue was people were not really explained accurately what those listing contracts were. They were just told to sign. And I know, like, I used to sell cars, man. And the reason why I kind of left the industry was because I saw some people do some shady stuff there. Wait a minute, I can say the word shit here. I guess shady shit. Some shady shit stuff back there. And I would see them present numbers in the most unethical standard. Like, all right, so you said you want a rear camera. You said, so your payments are like a big circle, $750. And then this is the upfront game. And then go back and they pay another $100 or whatever. But we are in a regulated industry. So those things don't happen here. But still, I think it's going to push the quality over quantity. I think the agents that emerge out of this are going to be way better. They're going to be much sharper, much more professional. They're going to be seasoned pros who know what they're doing and how to do it. So we're going to see all this post-COVID bubble agents who joined the industry just because they thought I'm going to be a millionaire, right?
Most of those guys are gone too.
So,
I mean, I'm no attorney, but I think it's very important. I've always took the time to explain at least the terms and conditions of the listing agreement with my sellers, and make sure they understand. And that's what we just have to do a better job at breaking it down and explaining to people and educating them. Exactly. That's what we need to do a better job of.
Absolutely. I think that's what's going to come down to is educating people. Because at the end of the day, they're going to hear what their mom or what the WhatsApp, I call them the WhatsApp news people. If you're in a Asian household, you know what the WhatsApp news is. The WhatsApp news is what people would call Facebook news. Like, it's not legitimate news. It's just nonsense thrown out there.
It's things like, if you drink green tea every day, you're going to lose 10 pounds. It's like, I wish that was that easy.
Please talk to a professional.
Right?
Please talk to a professional. Please talk to someone who is knowledgeable about these types of situations.
Well, I got a good example for you. So this actually happened to me in our transaction, guys. I'll share this example with you. So I had a buyer, loved the buyer, great person. We closed on his property, awesome experience. But the funny thing was his mom wanted to help him. And she used to flip properties back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago. And we went to the closing table we were doing the seller's disclosure. We gave them the disclosure, and the closing fees, as you guys know, we cannot know them up front. So we estimate them, right? So they were higher. And he's like, well, it's a lot. I'm like, it's not the real fees. I don't even know what the title company's going to charge you because it's a third party fee. They don't even know what they're going to charge you yet. Right. But the mom was involved. So we get to the closing table and the fee went from 15 to 13 to 12 to actually 8,000, right? It dropped almost in half, which was kind of rare, but it happened. So we get to the closing table and the client doesn't want to sign because the mom is taking a piece of that disclosure and marking it off and saying, oh, well, when I bought my house, I only paid $4,000. Why are you paying $8,000? So the question was, when was the last time you bought a house? It was 15 years ago. Well, 15 years ago, the price of eggs was not the same as it is today. Inflation is a real thing, guys. You can't go to a gas station and say, I'm going to pay you 50 cents per gallon because that's what I paid in 2005. It doesn't work like that, right? Things change. But yes, it is good to know what the market price is for certain services, because yes, everybody's different. Different title companies charge different. But there's things like escrow, there's things like upfront interest. There's a lot of things that happen. So I think
prepaid items too, right?
Exactly, prepaid, the biggest thing. And I think you're right. Like as lenders, as agents, as title, I think this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us to improve and work together and really help, as you said, educate those who really don't know how this works. So they feel the empathy. They feel that we care, and they really see that it's a passionate thing. Like, man, there's no better feeling. You guys correct me if you guys, feel this way, but for somebody to, regardless of your first time, second time, it's your retirement home. When you buy a home that you really love, the feeling of helping, just being a part of that for someone, it's a pretty big deal. Like it's very fulfilling as an experience apart from, just business. You guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Right?
what's one of the best feelings we do is helping that first-time home buyer that never thought, or helping their dream of home ownership come true, or that single mother. Like my wife works with a lot of single mothers, and just to be able to help them get into a home, put a roof over their heads for their children, without a struggling single mom, it's very gratifying, very satisfying, and I love helping like sellers sell and upgrade and help them get into something new, or start with their first home. And then I love, a lot of our clients are repeat business that we've seen. They were single couples, and then a couple years later now, like we have, one that have, they have 2 babies now, they have children now. And it's like, wow, it's like we met them when they were single. I mean, well, they were just a couple, no kids. Now they have, 2 and 3 children, and now they're upgrading home. That's kind of very cool. We want to be our clients' realtors for life, and to see them grow, as a family is, that's what's gratifying to us, and helping them put them into a home, that fits their family and their needs. That's very important,
Absolutely,
like
man.
Phil said, this is, he said it very nicely and very eloquently, but at the end of the day, this is a relationship business.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
That's what all about.
This is a
It's all about building
relationship
relationships, and that, for years to come. And I thank God that's blessed us. And while we have a great referral base, and because, we always strive to go above and beyond,
No,
it's
love
all
it,
about,
guys.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. So just to recap today, we just started talking about the whole NAR settlement, which is National Association of Realtors, their settlement with the class action suit. So we were just recapping that and what our thoughts were. And if you guys have any questions, please reach out and listen to our outro with all that info.
Yes, and please, if you guys have any thoughts, drop your comments. We'd love to hear from you guys always. And, if there's any topics you guys want to hear from us, please do share them.
We love the feedback.
Thank you for joining us today on the Real Deal Trio podcast, where we dive deep into the exciting worlds of real estate, business, and mastering that sweet life balance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us continue delivering content that matters to you. Stay pumped for our upcoming episodes, jam-packed with expert insight, game-changing strategies, and Florida real estate. For more exclusive contents and behind-the-scene action, follow us on Facebook, search for The Real Deal Trio group page, and for Instagram at The Real Deal Trio Pod. And for YouTube, search for The Real Deal Trio Podcast. We will have all these links to our social media account and some more in the description. We would love to be your go-to experts for all your real estate needs in Florida. Shoot us an email, realdealtrio@gmail.com. Until next time, keep balancing the hustle, the deals, and the moments that make life truly extraordinary. This is the Real Deal Trio Podcast, signing off.